right. So again, we have three panelists that will be joining us. So we have Katie Nicastri, Bailey Castillo, and Sebastian Vidal. And the topics that they've been asked to cover today is they might not touch on all of these, but these are some of the prompts I gave them to talk about their current position. So their job title, where it's located, and a description of the responsibilities and maybe both the highs and lows of their job, and if they're licensed. Helpful to know what your practice area and method were if you're an older graduate, or if you're more recent, if you were in our pathway system, and how the program helped prepare for the current position, and then any job searching tips and advice for graduate students. And we do anticipate that there will be plenty of time for you to all to ask questions, because I think we found that that's maybe most helpful during these panels. So we'll start off with Sebastian. Sebastian, do you want to give your own introduction here? I could read off your titles, but maybe it's best for you to go ahead and do that.
Sure. Yeah, so hi, everyone. I am Sebastian Vidal. I am currently a program officer for community engagement with children's services with the nonprofit organization Church World Service. I graduated in, actually, was it 2020? I think it was 2021, July of 2021.
My apologies.
Yeah, graduated July of 2021, and I am currently remote and I live in New York City. So in my role, what I do is essentially I create and develop national strategies for how to engage community members in understanding and welcoming unaccompanied children, involving different departments such as communications, policy and advocacy, funds development, marketing, and faith denomination leaders. So for those of you who may not know who an unaccompanied child is essentially a child who is foreign born and under the age of 18, who at the time of arrival in the US is without a legal parent or guardian, and then they're here essentially to reunify with a family member in the US. Part of my role, I also provide technical assistance to 16 offices across the United States and on their local goals for community engagement, promotion of outreach of their events, and program design, like any pilot projects they want to begin. I also lead the development for ways that community members can support the work that we do, mainly focusing on internship opportunities right now, but hopefully building ways that volunteers can support us as well. And then focus on building out donation support for unaccompanied children through any partnerships and gifts. So for example, in 2023, we received almost 1,300 backpacks and school supplies for kiddos, $49,800 in gifts and donations, and $86,000 in direct assistance funds through Faith Partners. So that's a little bit about my description. I am not licensed, although I'm 2 years past graduation. And I think the last question for that intro was the pathways, right? So I was a global pathways and a GASP scholar, one of 10, I believe. Oh, you're muted, Katie.
Thanks so much. I just thought I'd put this slide back up here, and let me put spotlight on Katie. Katie, do you want to introduce yourself? Let me see here. See if I can spotlight you. Okay, let me introduce Bailey next, because I think Katie's just jumping on maybe. And so we'll introduce who Bailey is. So Bailey Castillo is a MSW graduate. So what the position she's going to talk about is a position with International Rescue Committee out of Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia in the video. But actually just within like the last month or so, she's taken on a new position. So she's still working with International Rescue Committee, but her current title is Cultural Orientation Coordinator, and she for the resettlement support centers in Asia. So she's actually moved from Malaysia over to Thailand, and she is not licensed either, because that's not necessarily for her job. It's more in kind of the macro sphere, and she's obviously navigating living in different countries with different requirements. And Bailey also worked with, as she'll talk about, she worked with International Rescue Committee domestically before transitioning to this. She graduated in, I believe, in 2021 as well then, because she was in Sebastian's cohort. So I clearly got that part of it wrong. And let's see if there's anything else that I want to share about her update. Yeah, so I think that gives an overview of her position, and we'll hear more from her in the video that she shares. So, Katie, are you on and able to unmute?
Yes, sorry, there was a little kerfuffle with my connection for some reason. It kept signing me out. But anyway, so I'm Katie Nicastri. I am the social services manager at Freedom House Detroit. So I'm in Southwest Detroit. I graduated in 2010. I have my license. I've had it since 2015, I think was when I finally got that done. So it took a little time from graduation to getting it done to get my license, but yeah.
Great. And Katie,
And
are you, can you talk about, are you licensed clinical, macro, both?
macro. I was never interested in clinical, so I really went hard on the macro route. And so I really enjoy what I do at the macro level, working in communities and in organizations and developing plans and strategies for teams. So that's what I do.
Great. And can you also tell us what's your practice area and method? So you are not under our current pathway system, which is our current concentrations, but could you share about that as well?
Sure. So back in the old days, I was evaluation and social policy in communities and social systems with a minor in community organizing. And I did do a global pathway before it was really a global pathway. I did a research project in Chile for a summer um, on the Santiago longitudinal study under Jorge Delva. So yeah, I really got to use all of what was available at U of M at the time. I was excited for all the younger generations, but bummed out for myself when global social work really took off a couple years later.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, Sebastian, do we want to go back to you now and you can talk a little bit more about what your job search process was like and kind of how you landed where you are, the highs and lows of your job, and then any advice that you have for current students as they're looking to graduate soon and then figure out what their next steps are.
Yeah, sure. I have a little bit for each of those questions, so that's perfect.
Great.
So I actually found my current job and the previous job that I had before this on LinkedIn. But the key thing was that I had leveraged my previous networking, which led me to reconnect with the hiring manager, which is actually now my boss. So essentially from that, what I want to say is network and like to really do it and don't be afraid of like reaching out to people, because it can actually lead you to a lot of different connections or help with the referrals, that can even help you kind of build different rapport, different connections, that can help you stand out from the application process. So I had a previous colleague when I interned at the IRC as well with Bailey, who then transitioned to my current employer, CWS. And so through that kind of connection, I was able to get a referral and a really one-to-one face meeting with my boss as well. And so through that really helped me a lot in kind of understanding more about the role, if I was a good fit, and then just kind of having a face to a name already. Um, with any job search tips, I would also recommend exhausting all the platforms as possible. So, like search Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, Google as well. Because what I've learned now from my experience and then working with the nonprofit side of hiring as well is that not all the jobs are posted on all the same platforms. Some you have to pay higher costs to like advertise than others. And so always kind of exhaust everything if you can, and then always double confirm with the organization's website and ensure that it's actually a legitimate position, because sometimes you would be surprised to say that it isn't legitimate or it's a little bit weird. So just always do that double confirmation. And then something that helped me out is try to be as specific as possible with your searches, whether it's like a location that you want to live in. So whether you really want to be in Michigan, in California, in New York, if you want a remote or hybrid position, or if you know what population you want to work with, just kind of do very specific searches with those categories that would kind of open up some doors. So I knew that I wanted to work with unaccompanied children. So instead of just doing immigrant and refugee population searches, I would do unaccompanied child, immigrant child, children. So that kind of helped me tailor to see what organizations are kind of best in that sphere, or kind of work with that programs as well. Then With my job, the highs and lows. So I would say I'll start with the lows. So the difficult part is having to navigate through a ton of red tape with different funders. So my program is 100% funded by the Office of Refugee Resettlement, so the government. And so although it's great, there are a lot of limitations, especially when it comes to unaccompanied children as a population because of their age, they're under 18, they're exceptionally, particularly vulnerable to a lot of different risks. And so as that relates to my role with community engagement, it limits kind of the possibilities of what we can do in different kind of programming, how we can engage with them, how they can engage with community members because of a lot of protection, which is great, but again, makes it a little bit difficult. So kind of it might stump some ideas of what we can do. It might prolong some program planning, and especially with it being solely one funder, which is ORR, and it being an election year, there's always uncertainty with kind of how much funding will we get for this next year cycle, 2-year cycle, 3-year cycle. Will it change based on the administration or not? So those are kind of like the navigating the uncertainties, and you have to kind of be flexible, and that being 100% remote, while I love the flexibility, it can feel isolating at times, not engaging with my coworkers or with my team or with clients even. And so it's also sometimes hard to see how my work on a day-to-day basis kind of connects to the bigger picture, since a lot of it is now like long-term projects or design. I don't see that immediate short-term gratification or like connection right away, as I did previously in working as a case manager of like directly with the client. So those are kind of the things kind of for myself that are a little bit difficult to navigate. But I also really love it and enjoy it. And the highs are that I have a lot of autonomy and I can be creative in my role and what I kind of choose to focus on. So I was the first one in this position within the organization or department. And so not having someone that came before me in the role really allows me to be really creative and bring different visions to life. And I think sometimes it can be like a blessing and a curse, because then you don't have something to kind of guide you to, but at the same time, you really can kind of take it in whatever direction you want it to. So that's, for me, is actually very exciting, kind of brings a different kind of thing to the picture for me. And then I'm also given the opportunity to represent my department through various mediums, which is something that this is the first time for me professionally that I'm able to kind of be the face of the program in different areas. So I was in a, like, whether it's in a panel for schools like I am right now, or with a different college week for different universities. I was also able to interview a New York Times bestselling author of Solito, who was also an unaccompanied child, for our upcoming, our previous conference. I did presentations to external individuals or organizations. I also have different kind of my hand on different communications related activities. And I also got to be part of a panel at Capitol Hill to advocate for policy asks for unaccompanied children. And so that was something that I never really thought that I would be in that space. But I'm really grateful that I have that opportunity to kind of be, deepen my presentation and communication skills as a leader through my job. I think the next thing that I wanted to talk about was like if I felt prepared or not for the current role by the program. And I said it was about like 50-50. And so I thought I really felt prepared through my internships more than I did through maybe the content of the courses, or not all of them in particular. And so I learned like tangible skills, for example, in program evaluation or in grants and budgeting and leadership, that kind of prepared me for my current role. Not so much the one that I had before, but both of my internships throughout my 1 year in the program kind of taught me the behind the scenes of nonprofit work. So that might be a little bit less glamorous, like auditing and program design and program eval. And again, not working with clients, but kind of how does a nonprofit function and what are the things you have to navigate. And then the second one with the IRC, I actually was able to kind of focus on the other side of the program. So working in an unfunded program, working directly with clients, working on finding funding opportunities and building a program design. And so I really felt like the internship experience for me was the most valuable, and actually was able to kind of get me to the population that I wanted to. So I was able to work with, families seeking asylum, and then that led me to unaccompanied children, which is who I work with right now. So yeah, I felt that the internships were really kind of like my bread and butter throughout the program. And then what I wanted to kind of end with, or any advice for graduating students, is to just be flexible and open to everything. So sometimes things don't go exactly as we plan it, and that's okay, right? I'm a type A, like I love to plan as much as I can, like very organized. And I essentially, when I went into the program, with a scholar, I really was so confident that I would live and work abroad, like my best friend Bailey. COVID happened. That really wasn't the situation for our cohort. Um, but rather than kind of beating myself up over that, I really was just open to all the different possibilities, and I'm really happy with where I am now in my position. So rather than kind of resisting that, just embrace whatever comes your way. Don't get too caught up in finding the perfect role either, because not every position will have everything that you're looking for, but just kind of weigh the pros and cons before making an informed decision and whatever is best for you. And then when you do find that job that you want, like do your best to prepare as much as you can for the interview, be yourself and let your personality shine through. Like it's okay not to know everything. My boss really told me that what kind of seal the deal for me. I interviewed one day and I got hired the following day, like less than 24 hours. And what really shined through was that, they saw that I was motivated, that I was passionate about the work, and that although I didn't know everything right away, that I was willing to learn and grow on the job. And so having those key components, I think, are really important. And then obviously negotiate. Don't be afraid to negotiate, whether that's salary or any other additional kind of benefit package. So don't just get stuck on that number, but like look at well-rounded position, like whether it's PTO, if they're paying for professional development funds, or if they'll pay for your licensing or additional courses. So kind of really look at that holistic picture, and hopefully that will help you make a decision that's right for you.
Great, thanks so much, Sebastian. I think you referenced your previous role, but I'm not sure that you shared what that was. Do you want to share what the other organization was that you worked with right out of graduation?
Yes. So a month after graduation, I got a position with Kids in Need of Defense. So it's KIND. They're also another national organization. They're more focused on legal representation for unaccompanied children. So it started as an organization of attorneys, and then they slowly were introducing social workers or social services coordinators into the program. So they would work directly with unaccompanied children, kind of as a case manager to a smaller cohort. And then kind of it was a mix of case management and also community development or community engagement. So doing programming, doing events, and kind of building support. So I was the first one for the Los Angeles office for 6 months. And that was kind of a perfect blend of my previous experience with IRC as a case manager, doing community engagement work, doing that program design into my current role now. So it was like the perfect blend of two. I love that position a lot. I really enjoyed it because I was a first social worker in an office of attorneys. So that was also a different space to navigate. How do I work myself, and also how do I collaborate with a team of people who aren't social workers? And I think I had a really good experience. But I ended up finding a new position because my partner and I moved from California to New York. So yeah, that's how that happened.
Great, thanks for sharing all of that. So now I'm going to pull up Bailey's video and we'll listen to her, and then we'll have at the next, then Katie will go. I'm going to start the video, and I think I have it set up correctly so that the sound settings are correct. But if someone can give me a thumbs up through the participant reactions to make sure you can hear, that would be great.
Hey everyone, my name is Bailey Castillo. I graduated from the School of Social Work in April of 2022, so pretty recently. While I was there, I was in the Global Activity Scholars Program, Global Pathway, and I had two global focused field placements. So the first one was with Jewish Family Services of Washtenaw County, and I was a refugee resettlement intern, so that was more macro focused. And then I had a second placement with the International Rescue Committee, and that was a more micro placement, and I was an information and referral intern. Yeah, they were both pretty different. I think they both, exposed me to a lot of different aspects of a refugee resettlement agency. And both, taught me different things that I think I've carried forward into my current position. So presently, I am a senior United States Refugee Admissions Program senior casework manager at the Resettlement Support Center in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, which is run by the International Rescue Committee. So currently, I think there's like 7, I'm not sure, it like fluctuated, and a couple were closed down under the Trump administration, but I think there's probably 7 or 8 resettlement support centers around the world. And resettlement support centers are something that is run, well, so it's part of the State Department, so they have them run by different non-governmental organizations around the world. So this is funded by the Population Migration and Refugees Bureau, or the Bureau of Population Migration and Refugees, out of the State Department. So I ended up in this role kind of by way of my field placement with the International Rescue Committee. I was finishing up my placement with them in the summer. I had a 2-week, gap between my placement and then classes starting back up in the fall of 2022, or no, of 2021, sorry. And, Afghanistan fell, or Kabul fell. We had the evacuation, and so I was like, okay, I'll spend 2 weeks volunteering on a military base, helping with the processing, and then I'll start back school. And I went. I really loved the work, and I ended up staying for the whole semester and deferred for a semester. So I think that experience really impacted, my career trajectory, and that wouldn't have happened without my placement with the International Rescue Committee through the MSW program. As a senior casework manager, I am responsible for overseeing the pre-screen interviews that occur prior to a case being presented to a United States citizenship, USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services Officer. And so we prepare the case and then present it, or we give it to them, and they do their interviews and adjudicate and decide whether or not refugees will be admitted to the United States or not. So I oversee a small team. I have 1 direct report, and she has 6 direct reports, and they are caseworkers and senior caseworkers, and yeah, we're a great bunch. Let me go through my notes. I'm sorry, I'm just referencing some stuff to make sure I touch on everything. I'm currently not licensed, and I don't have any plan to get licensed. To do this type of work, you don't have to have a licensure, and it's just something I don't really personally want to pursue, and I don't think that it would really be beneficial for the work that I'm doing. I mean, perhaps it would, but in my career plans, it's not on my horizon anytime soon. But, in the role that I'm in now, I don't think that I ever could have, when I started, the MSW program, I knew I wanted to work abroad and I wanted to work with refugees. And what capacity, I wasn't quite sure, and I obviously found my way. I'm very operationally minded, and so this role really fits me and what I like to do and what my strengths are. But obviously with that, there's a lot of challenges. And, policy challenges, things I don't agree with, working with donors, and sometimes like having differences in opinion and, really having to execute. We have our duty to serve our clients, but also, sometimes when there's a policy that you may not 1000% think is in the best interest of the clients, having to, raise it up, advocate, have conversations. Luckily, my management and, the office that I'm in and the resettlement support center that I'm in is fabulous. I love my leadership. I really love the people that I work with and next to every day. So I think that's great. But talking about challenges and working in a global context, every day I'm asking myself, is this something that is a cultural difference, a cultural, not misunderstanding in the sense where we're disagreeing on 2 things, but when we come out of a meeting, or if we have something that we're gonna do, or, whatever it may be, I'm always wondering, is my understanding different because of a cultural thing? If I understood the next step to be something different, is it because of work style approaches, is it because of cultural differences? And it's a lot more present than I was consciously aware of when I came into it. I knew that there would be differences, but it's really it's a challenge, but in a great way. I feel like I'm learning so much. And with that comes kind of the expectation of like work-life balance. Being in Malaysia, it's very different than the US. You know, with my current position, I go in at one time and I leave at one time. I don't bring my laptop home. I don't work from home. I don't work on the weekends. We get annual leave and it's respected, and you go, and that's kind of the approach, and it's so different. You know, in the US, you're used to kind of just working, and not getting any time off. And so even adjusting to that and having to adjust my expectations of when people are gone, they're gone. You can't email them and be like, hey, you know, I don't know where this is standing or where it's at. You know, you just have to figure it out. So not speaking specifically about, you know, this type of work, but working in a global context, I think it's a fun challenge to take on for any of you who will be doing that outside of the US. It's an additional layer of kind of complexity, but it keeps things interesting. And I think, you know, I grow every day and I'm learning every day from the folks that I work with. Thinking about how, you know, the MSW program prepared me for this role, I would say there's so many different ways that it did. I wouldn't say that it gave me like a set of a checklist or a set of tools that I go into work every day and I'm like, yes, this, yes, this. But I think that it gave me a foundation and like ways to think about things, and the program has helped me critically think about issues that impact the larger system that impacts our clients. And think it helped me think about ways that me as an individual can work in a system to create change that create better outcomes for our clients. So it helped me kind of change my thinking and shift, and gave me kind of a framework to work within. Don't expect to come out of this program and be like, I have everything that I need to learn. You're going to learn every day. You're going to keep learning. You're going to keep being challenged. There's going to be things you learn in school that once you get into the field, don't apply, or they should apply and they don't apply. And you're like, this doesn't make any sense. This has nothing, like, this is not what I learned. This is not how it should go. But it's up to us to kind of raise those issues and work towards a change and try to better improve the systems and the policies to get what we think is best, or to do what we know is best for our clients. Trying to think. I'm just like thinking of any advice. There's like so many things I could say. I would say the biggest piece of advice that I have for you all throughout your job search, and while you're looking to kind of maybe work in a global context, work outside the US, whatever it may be, who you work with, how you hold yourself, how you engage with people, and how you show up every day speaks a lot, and people don't forget that. When I took the semester off and was working on the Afghan evacuation processing, the people that I worked with at that time, I had no idea who they were. To me, they were just my colleagues, and I didn't know their background or, you know, what they had done in the past, anything like that. And it turns out that they were very influential in my career progression and really influenced me and helped me get to where I was today. I didn't realize, you know, some of them had worked, you know, in this office before. So when this job popped up and I was talking to them about wanting to apply, they were like, oh yeah, I knew that person. Like, yeah, I'd love to like connect you, or like let them know that you've applied, that type of thing. So connections are really important. Building relationships are really important. Valuing every person with the same, or giving respect to the same person. I mean, I guess it's like fundamental you learn in social work and in life, but just reiterating that, you know, these relationships are really important, and building those professional relationships are extremely important, and you never know where they'll carry you in the end. I want you guys to stay resilient, keep applying for jobs. I applied for probably 20 before I got this role, and for one reason or another, they didn't work out. It all led me to this, but I think by the time I got to this interview, it was the last interview that I had and the first yes that I had, obviously. And I think every interview I had up to this point prepared me to interview and knock it out, and I felt confident in my interview because I had been interviewing so much. So don't give up, keep trying. and be willing to do things that you may not have anticipated doing. So take different steps, take different roles, and learn how to kind of build them as stepping stones on top of each other to get to where you want to be. So with that, I will stop rambling. I hope you guys are having a great semester and that job searching is going well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me via email or LinkedIn, and I wish everyone the best.
Great. So thanks for Bailey for sharing her video. And as I mentioned, she just recently transitioned to, she talked about kind of building roles, and she has recently moved her position from being in Malaysia to now having her position that's in Thailand over one of the kind of regional resettlement support centers. And then finally, we'll have Katie go. So Katie, do you want to go ahead?
Okay. So I am the social services manager at Freedom House Detroit. Like I mentioned, I would say that I found this position partially because I've been specializing in immigration law, and immigrant communities since 2008, basically. So it is sort of a culmination of my career choices over the years. And of course, having an LMSW really helped because I need to be able to supervise interns and I need to be able to supervise other LLMSWs as they come on. So it definitely was just a right time, right place for me. As of next week, I actually will be transitioning out of my role. I'll be transitioning into a role as a paralegal, which has been a job choice that I've been inching towards over the years. And I'll be working in an immigration law firm. And I would say I got that job just because of the same reasons, because I've been able to show that this is definitely my passion. This has been a consistent theme throughout all of my 15 years working in the field. And just being able to really package that well for them and show them that I know what I'm doing and I'm able to do this job. Job tips definitely are get involved. Don't just go to work and go home. Find coalitions or groups that are doing work that you find really interesting. Even if it never leads to a job, it's always really nice to be in a room with people who care about the same issues that you do, especially because this work can feel very siloed at times. You know, everyone's kind of in their organizations. Sometimes we're working in very small organizations and you don't get to see as many people in a day. And it's nice to be in the room with folks who are interested in what you do. But that is how I got my previous position at International Institute is I was very involved. I am still involved with the Michigan Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, and they posted the job posting there. That's how I found the job. I applied as soon as I saw it because I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. And they called somebody that wasn't on my reference list to be like, do you know this person? And they're like, yeah, she's great. You should totally hire Katie. Why wouldn't you hire her? And they were worried because I was overqualified for the position. And so they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't crazy, I guess. But so I spent a lovely 5 years there. I would say, other than that, just be present, do the work, do your job, do the best that you can, check in with your supervisor. If you're having struggles with a supervisor, address it and be in the moment about it. Don't just quit and leave. You have to have those tough conversations sometimes with clients, but also with your coworkers. You're going to have stylistic differences, you're going to have leadership differences, and being able to work through that and maintain professionalism throughout is going to also make sure that for your next job, when you have to leave that place for whatever reason, or you decide because you want to do a career change, that they would be happy to give you a reference for the next job. I'd say the highs of my job right now. I really enjoyed my team. I've really enjoyed being a leader for my team and building our team. I've tripled our staff in 8 months. So we've also quadrupled the number of clients we're serving, which might be considered a low or a high, depending on how I'm feeling that day. So we've I've enjoyed growing my team, watching their development and just coaching them through difficult times, especially because we are a housing program as well as an immigration law program. So we do everything under the sun, and we make sure that the bathrooms are working. We make sure that people are being referred for medical and mental health services, that they're receiving adequate legal services, that the housing is adequate, that the relationships between clients are working. So those are all highs and lows at any given point in the day. It's lovely to connect people to the services that exist in our community, or to build the connections with new partners that are able to then build those out. But it can also be really challenging because living in community is very difficult. Especially when you're living in community with people who speak 12 different languages in one house, and now across 3 houses. So having 225 people all in pretty close quarters can lead to some interesting behavioral patterns, but also just conflicts or just general day to day. Like, think about if all of your family came over to visit you and then they just stayed forever. It's kind of like that. So just navigating those relationships with and alongside of the residents here at all 3 of our houses is always a journey every day. I don't think the MSW program could have ever prepared me for what we do here at Freedom House, just because it's so much all the time with so many people. But I think there are a lot of things it did prepare me for. So it prepared me to be a leader. It prepared me on all of the day-to-day kind of things that we need to do, doing case notes, making sure that you know how to build a partnership with other organizations, how to understand the needs of clients and assessing clients, evaluating the work that you're doing with clients constantly, and just generally developing plans. So I think that the MSW program is definitely, as Bailey mentioned, it's a foundation, and you just keep building on it. And every year you're going to get more and more experience. I mean, I felt prepared for the first job I had out of my MSW program, and I definitely would not have been able to step into this role fresh out of the MSW program and just been able to run with it the way that I have here. It would have taken me a lot longer to get to where I am today. But I think that you just continue to take small challenges over and over again until you build all the skills that you feel that you need for the next job. And you always learn on the job usually, because you'll know how to do one thing really well at one job. You'll move to a new job and they're like, hey, you got to do it on this system, and we're going to do the same tracking that you were doing over there, but we're going to do it totally differently. So just scrap everything you've learned and start over. And I think the other thing that the MSW program teaches you is about being flexible in your thinking. And you're going to need that throughout your career. And advice for graduating MSW students, I didn't realize how quickly time was going to pass doing the work that I do, and yet how slowly, right? So like, days are very long, but the years are very short. And so building a strategy right after graduation is great. I had a strategy. I graduated in the middle of a recession. There were no jobs, and there were not jobs that were long-term for quite some time. So have a plan. Hopefully it works out for you. If it doesn't, just know that you'll still find a path. I've had a very interesting and diverse set of jobs, and I feel like sometimes it was very hard for me to, in the moment, be able to thread all of that together and understand, like, I am still doing something that's consistent. It's just, I did that at this organization. Now I'm doing this at this other organization. And I didn't know that my career was going to be entirely focused on immigration. I knew I was very interested in it. I didn't necessarily start right away in immigration. I had been doing that kind of as a side project or a passion project on the side. I was involved in my community in that way, but it has grown into my lifelong career. I'm probably going to die happy doing immigration law in one way or another. So that's my advice, is to just be open. Your path is going to find you. Pay attention and be self-aware about what is interesting to you in the moment, and that might shift over time, or the type of work you do to be interested in that might change over time. So I did community organizing for a while, and that's just not where I'm interested in keeping my energy anymore. It's long hours, it's a lot of evening and weekends, and I have little people I want to get home to now. But I still do organize around this issue, but in 9 to 5 ways. So I think that you can find the things you're interested in your own way. And also, I was dead set I was gonna like go into the Peace Corps or be a foreign service officer in the State Department. That was gonna be my career. That I was just gonna live overseas the rest of my life. I have not lived overseas, but I have still managed to meet people from all over the world doing work that I really love and care about, with people that I like and care about as well, who are also from all over the world. So I've worked alongside people from Croatia, from Poland, from Venezuela, from Congo, whole list of countries that I can't even think of right now. So you might think that you're going to go long distances to serve people from all over the world, but really sometimes people from all over the world are traveling long distances to come to you to receive the services that you are very capable of providing. And that's my soapbox.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. I appreciate it. Yay, Sebastian's clap. So let's see if I can get this back so that we don't have the spotlight and we can see everyone. And this is really the chance to open it up to questions now. So if folks have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or we can put them in the chat. If you do have a question that's specific to Sebastian, maybe ask that first, because he has another meeting at 1. And so we have to make sure we give him enough time to pass to his next engagement. So any questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask quickly, Sebastian, you said you were part of the gas program. Where did you go and what did you do for that experience?
So unfortunate. Yeah, so I was one of 10 with Bailey actually for the 2020. And unfortunately, right, the pandemic, was happened. And so I know Katie was trying everything she could under the sun to try to get us in 2021 of summer to go somewhere. But unfortunately, U of M really wanted to kind of protect students, and just it was a little bit of an uncertain time. So we didn't get to go abroad for that summer. But Katie did an awesome job at connecting with IRC, for example, and getting us at least a global pathway, global placement internship locally and domestically in the US. And so Bailey and I both intern at actually the same places, Jewish Family Services of Washtenaw County, and then IRC in Dallas remotely. But yeah, we were trying everything we could. But it happens. And just like Katie said, like I was so certain on that. But really, like, things come to you in different unexpected ways, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's so nice to see Bailey on there. I've been meaning to catch up with her, so yeah, I'm like, I will come visit you in Thailand. I was just there with my partner in December, and she had just moved in like January, so we're gonna have to find a way to reconnect. But unfortunately, yeah, the pandemic stopped that.
I think that was a theme that I heard through all 3 of yours, is kind of flexibility with what your plans are and what the reality ends up being with what works out. So, yeah. Other questions?
Hi, everyone. I just have a quick question. I heard throughout the conversation, I think it was you, Sebastian, that you mentioned like how important it is to have like your social networks and also like platforms like LinkedIn. And I just wanted to check if there are any other things that are useful, like tips, like when in the job search, like other platforms that we should be aware of, kind of to utilize. And thank you, everyone. That's really helpful.
Yeah, I think so. It's been a while. I did a lot of the job search 2021, but what I really did was, I think LinkedIn now has a bunch of different features. Like depending on who your connections are, like you can search jobs by like remote, hybrid, like anyone that you're connected in, if they're hiring, it'll show you like who's in your network. So that's a really cool feature that I would maybe utilize now. But other than that, I don't know any other new platforms, but I would just know that I was in every single one possible. ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor, like Remote Job, USA Jobs, everything. I think I used the UMich like like connection as well as like a previous undergrad. So like I tried going and creating profiles on there and reaching out to people. But if not, like what I have done, so what I've had done to me is a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, like even if we're not connected, if we're, I graduated from if they're a student or not, and just kind of like reaching out through a message and saying, hey, you have this position or this job that I'm interested in. Can I like, pick your brain and just see like, what does your day-to-day look like? What skills would it be useful? So you'd be surprised that a lot more people are definitely open and willing to have that conversation. So like if you find people, like don't be afraid to reach out.
I'll also say idealist.org is a good place to look for jobs that are mission driven. So there's a lot of social work jobs on there. You can also put yourself as open to work on LinkedIn, and there's a recruiter button on Indeed as well. I forget where it is exactly, but you can also look through your network, and some people will have a hiring sticker on their profile. I have one right now in case you're looking for a therapist job. We're looking for 2 therapists to work with our survivor of torture program. But that's one way that people can find you. I actually didn't apply I got 4 job offers. I didn't apply for any of them. People reached out to me and they're like, you'd be great. And I was like, here's my resume. Like, you can do what you want with it. And then they were like, so we're going to hire you. And I was like, well, hold on. Like, I'm not really sure I want to do that. So it was nice for the first time in my life, because I did come out in a recession, to really be in demand. It was very weird. So I would say that was a really good feature, because recruiters were just finding me and asking me like, hey, do you want this job? And it kind of took some of the legwork out of it for me. And then I would agree as well that doing some informational interviews, or just like chatting with people about their jobs at a networking event, how did they get that? Like, what qualifications are usually sought out for that type of job? Where's the wiggle room on those qualifications? Because sometimes people are like, we need an LMSW on this job description. They're like, what will actually take an LLMSW? So just being aware of what they're able to flex on, and what they're not able to flex on. So.
Great, thanks so much. I put the Idealist in there. I'll put another one in here. There's one, I haven't used it myself, but it's DevNet Jobs. So it's national and international job postings on international development and consulting type jobs. So that might be another place to look. And I'll also just plug, we have a website. A lot of this is focused on students that are interested in working overseas once they graduate, which is a little bit different than, Sebastian and Katie's work. But the bottom includes some job search boards you might try, and some of them aren't all internationally focused. So there's also one called Evaluation Jobs that I know Sue Ann Savis and the program evaluation group, shares that one. So there's a lot of different ones that are out there. But I do think I think the 3 of you touched really nicely on how important networking is. And sometimes we think it has to be people we know well, but sometimes it's a connection of someone, or, someone that you're willing to do an information interview with, then thinks of your name when something comes up. And so, I think close relationships are helpful, but sometimes even just ancillary, like, ones that are a little bit maybe less formal, also can work in your favor. Other questions before we sign off? I know, Sebastian, you have to go, so maybe we can give a round of applause for our presenters. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will share out the recording of this to everyone that RSVP'd, but also to you that came as well, in case you want to look at it again.
Great. Thank you all. And I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn if you want to reach out to me as well. Katie has my information, so always happy to chat in any way. But thank you all, and so nice to meet you, Katie, as well. And good luck.
Nice to meet you. You can find me on LinkedIn as well, so I am easy to find online.